As music instructors, we've all heard the question, how much time should my child spend practicing? If you typically answer with a number of minutes per day or times per week, there's a good chance you're setting your students up for failure. But if you know the answer is more complex, stick around for this discussion on how to talk with parents about practice in music lessons. Welcome to Rock School Proprietor Podcast. My name's John Kazicki.
And I'm Mandy York.
Mandy, with your early childhood classes, I'm assuming it's not often that you get asked by parents in your studio, how much time should we be practicing at home?
Not a question I often get, no.
Have you gotten that question?
I have not. We talk about how to support the music development at home.
Mm-hmm.
I give kind of homework suggestions, if you will, on what parents can be doing to support their kids. But not a lot of parents are thinking that they need to be doing X amount of hours or certain activities on a daily basis.
Right. It's pretty common in the private lesson studio.
Oh, yes.
In the rock school, we get that related to private lessons. How much time should we be practicing? And I think it's in keeping with that theme that we're going for, like how to talk to parents about, this is, I think, a good one. This is a big one because I don't think there's an easy answer if you want to give what I think is the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is the quick, easy answer that, I'm guilty of giving it in the past. I've heard my instructors give this answer is an amount of time per day or a number of days per week that kids should be practicing.
Yeah.
And my rationale behind that not being the best answer is because you're setting up a situation in which there's this transactional relationship with practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think parents already have that assumption that private lessons equals, well, you have to practice at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying you don't, but I think the conversation should be bigger because when you give an answer to that question, hey, how much should my child be practicing at home? And your answer involves something that can be tracked like number of days or number of minutes. Well, one, you're confirming the parent's assumption that practice is going to equal success. And it's not always going to equal success, I think. But you're also, in making it a transactional thing, you're putting all the pressure on the student. Like they have this requirement that they have to meet every week. And it's very easy then for the parents to look at it and say, my child isn't meeting their obligation here.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that parents want something that they can quantify. They want, especially if they're not.
Get it.
Yeah, that's what they want. Tell me what I need to do, and I'll make sure it happens at home.
Right. Well,
without understanding. Yes, absolutely. We always have to remember that. But not understanding the bigger picture here. If they haven't learned an instrument or if they're not musicians themselves, I can imagine that taking your student in to learn how to play guitar can seem really overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a complicated thing. You need to tell me what I need to do at home so that my child can be successful.
Right. And I think the problem with that 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes, whatever, 3 days a week, I think the problem with that is you're setting the kid up for like this pass-fail scenario.
Yes. The parent will be grading their child essentially too.
Yeah. And there's no guarantee that picking up that instrument and playing something for 10 minutes a day is necessarily going to result in what you want to see happen. Kids are kids.
Yeah.
If they view it like homework,
it's going to be a drag.
Yeah. It's akin to studying for the test as opposed to learning the material, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And long term, there's potential there then for the parents to pull kids out of lessons because, oh, they're not practicing. I don't think we're going to spend the money on this anymore because they're not practicing. Anything related to personal growth or enrichment is kind of not taken into consideration in that scenario.
Right.
That's that transactional thing. So, and I would argue that when you ask parents why they take their kids out of music lessons, I think, oh, they weren't practicing is the most common answer.
Yeah, I would say so. I hear that a lot.
Right. So that's why, my long-winded reason why I think, well, we should have this conversation. And when we are asked, how much time should my child be practicing? We have a way to answer the question so we don't feel on the spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be asked.
It will be asked. Yeah. Yeah. I have 3 points.
Okay.
Do you want me to go through the 3 points? Do you want to add anything before we start?
No, I want to hear your points and then I'll add to it because I have thoughts here.
Okay.
And I want to relate it to what I do at my early childhood center too.
Okay. So number 1, I ask other questions when in that situation. How much should they be practicing at home? I ask return questions, follow-up questions. Yeah. And in particular, what are the goals for the student? Short-term, long-term? Because if the answer to that question, what are the goals, if it involves maybe the student wants to be a professional musician, maybe the student wants to pursue music in higher education, or they're interested in doing competitions, my answer is going to be different because my answer then might include a transactional, you have to practice this much. I think how we approach practice is going to be different. But if that is not the answer, then I think practice should be approached in a different way. And if the answer is enjoyment, fulfillment, or if the parent isn't even sure.
Yeah, because that'll happen.
Yeah. I think that's probably common.
Oh, yeah.
Which sounds weird, right? If the parent's like, I don't even know why I have my child in lessons. Or maybe the answer is, well, they seem to like music.
Yep.
Then my answer is going to be way different. And my other 2 points are related to that way different, not the career in music or pursuing music in higher education or competitions.
Yeah. The point is that one approach won't work for everybody.
Right.
And because kids are all different. Kids are all different. They've got different styles of learning, different personalities. So it's going to be different depending on that. Another question I might ask is, well, what's going on at home right now? What does practice look like right now? You know?
Yeah.
That could be a jumping off point as well. But in addition to that, practice is going to look different at different stages, right?
Yes.
If this is their first 2 months, practice is going to look different than, a year or 2 from now, probably, right?
Yeah. So I think exactly. So I think it is worth revisiting this and figuring out, well, what's the best approach. Do you think it's fair to say that if the answer is about becoming a pro musician or pursuing music in higher education, do you think that's probably the minority of students?
Yeah, I would say that.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree. I agree.
But I don't know that students or families come in, for one reason, and it can end up being, well, actually, I want to make a career out of this.
Yeah.
So it can change into that.
Yeah.
But to initially come in and say, this is what I want to do, I'm going all the way.
Yeah.
Happens less often, I'd say.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So what you want to do is foster that passion and not squash it so that maybe it can turn into something deeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. I agree. Okay. So then assuming that we're talking to a parent who is either not sure what the goal is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one, we try and help figure out what the goal is.
Yeah.
If it's music as enrichment, music as a fulfilling hobby, music as a long-term part of their lives,
Mm-hmm.
well then now, my point number two is where I think we explain what the pitfalls are to that assumption that practice equals this transactional thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of said most of it already about what that transactional approach and the pitfalls are to it. It really, again, is just all that pressure on the kid. And if the goal is not pursuing music at a higher level or higher education or professionally at this point, well then why do we put so much focus on the practice?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, you're talking to someone that studied music in college.
Well, exactly. I know.
You have to practice to get better.
Yeah,
you do.
You do.
You absolutely do. But if they're a new learner and they are, they're practicing and learning in their lesson every week.
Yes.
Even if that is the only thing they're doing, they'll be making those teeny tiny steps if that's the minimal, right?
But
that's
music
happening.
is a long game.
Yeah.
So
totally.
And that's exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a time and a place for focused practice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked a lot about that on other episodes. But just like you're saying, doing that activity is going to result in improvement.
Yes.
Just by doing the activity,
mm-hmm.
Not necessarily like the focused practice.
Mm-hmm.
That actually, this morning, I was doing a social media post, and I think it's probably inspired by thinking about this discussion we were going to have today. But the post I made with a picture of one of our students performing is, I said that practice, the myth is that success in music lessons means you put in time practicing. I think it's more about engagement. And if you're engaging the student and you're keeping them interested in what they love about music, well, then they're going to want to practice. Mm-hmm. So really that goal should be engagement rather than making sure they log hours to practice.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Early on, if they are excited about taking a lesson and then they're thrown homework every week right away.
Right.
That can, take the spark out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's worth noting, I definitely have had to talk to my instructors about this when I hear parents of their students ask them specifically, hey, how much time should we be practicing? Mm-hmm. And I get it. They've got 2 minutes between like one student and the next. They're talking to the parent at the end of the lesson, getting the other student in there. They're asked this question that, we're going to take 30 minutes right now discussing, mm-hmm. but they're asked how much time. So I definitely think it's worth having this same discussion if you have other instructors, if you have employees, to help them answer that question in a way that isn't, well, this many minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
per day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that answer that, yeah, if they do practice 15 minutes every day, they're going to get better. Mm-hmm. So sure, you can give that answer, but is it what's best for that student? Is it what you want the parent to go home and start like logging for their kids and saying, oh no, you can't go outside until you practice for 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you can't play video games. You have to go, play your guitar for 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I think the idea is more about not perpetuating that assumption that is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Or that if you sign up for music lessons, that commitment equals logging practice time. Mm-hmm. Again, time and a place, but not necessarily the thing that I think I want to promote or encourage in the parent's mind, if that means that it's going to be a detriment to the student and the student's going to feel weird pressure, and then ultimately the parent's going to have ammunition to fire back at the student and like pull them out of lessons. And yeah, I think it's contrary to our goal.
Okay. So what can we suggest to the parents then?
Ooh, tough one. Well, we did an entire episode. It was episode 4. It was way back.
Gosh.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem that long ago.
I know. Do you remember it? What
Oh,
counts as practice? Redefining practice in music lessons. So we won't rehash all of that, but that's the resource, I think. And there's even, I think there's even, there is a resource on our website, how to redefine practice in music lessons. So that's available for people to download. Now, but once you go through with the parent and ask, well, what are your goals? And you discuss what those pitfalls are with that transactional idea behind practice. Yes, you have to have some other way to kind of drive the point home. You don't want to just say like, don't worry about practice. Don't think of practice.
It's all going to come. It'll all work out.
Yeah. Because I definitely think then the parents will leave thinking like, what is going on here? What am I paying for?
Exactly.
I think offer comparisons. That's number 3 for me. You offer comparisons. Does the child play sports? Do you have any children that participate in dance? Do they take any art classes? And usually the answer is yes. Or if not, they can at least relate to those activities. And then you ask another question, like how much do you have them practice those things at home?
Yeah.
You draw that comparison.
Yes. That is a good one. I think that can kind of, turn on that light bulb in a parent's head because that's easy. They understand those things maybe a little bit better than music lessons.
Sure. Sports in particular.
Exactly.
You sign your kid up for baseball. You take them to baseball practice. You take them to baseball games. You don't make sure they're spending 30 minutes in the backyard every day practicing their swing, maybe at a certain level. But again, the majority of kids, we're not doing that. So in these other activities, that's why, I mean, they're signing their kids up for these activities for what? The other benefits, the social interaction, exercise, physical exercise,
the
teamwork,
community of it,
enrichment. And again, there's probably those parents who are thinking, like, my kid's going to be a pro baseball player.
Yeah.
But the majority of them aren't thinking about that when they sign their kids up for baseball or whatever sport.
Yeah. Totally. And so I have a daughter that's been playing volleyball for several years now. And she started in the rec league and went to practice and played games. And when we signed up, I didn't know if it was going to be like one season or what we were doing. She fell in love with it. She really liked it. Kind of had some natural talent there. So after a couple years of that, she moved into a club team. And after she started getting more serious, well, then we've got a volleyball net in the backyard.
Yeah.
Well, now we're practicing our serves in the backyard. You know what I mean? Those first couple years or so, we weren't doing anything at home. I mean, maybe, bumping a ball around for fun.
Right.
But just like in music, you're learning the activity, you're learning the instrument. And then as you kind of fall in love with it, and get better at it, you're going to want to pick up that instrument at home more often, right?
Yes.
But I'm not going to say, okay, we signed you up for rec volleyball. I need X amount of serves every night now.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
Did you ever do that?
No. No, but it was a natural progression. She fell in love with the activity and started practicing more on her, like honing certain skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing as in music.
My nephew is pretty serious about baseball. And they do private lessons in addition to, his travel team and his high school team.
Yeah.
And he's been playing since he was young. He's a senior. He's going to be a senior in high school. But I don't know if I've ever heard my sister and brother-in-law say, all right, get out there and practice your swing or go out there and practice your pitching.
Mhm.
I know he's done it. I've seen him do it.
Mhm.
But even at that level,
Yeah.
they're having him do private lessons.
Mhm.
I don't know how much they're requiring him, or having him log the amount of pitches he throws during the week or
No.
anything like that.
Right. Yep.
So it is interesting that we do that naturally in music. And again, I understand it. It's for specific things you have to put in the work to see the progress. But it's weird that it's that serious so fast in music.
Yeah, at such a young age. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Okay, so those are my 3 points. I want to reference, because we've talked a lot about this topic on the podcast. The other episodes that we've talked about what counts as practice, redefining practice in music lessons. That was episode 4. A really great one was, you weren't involved with this one. I talked with our friend Dave Simon,
Yeah.
episode 29, revisiting the practice problem. That's what Dave's been calling this phenomenon for years. He calls it the practice problem.
Yeah.
Episode 10 was, I think that's a good resource, prioritizing playing over teaching in lessons. That was one where we gave a lot of examples for instructors for what they can do in the lessons so that it doesn't feel so rote. And it sort of carries over into other ideas that you can use to suggest that kids do at home, so that practice doesn't seem like this really rigid, like running scales or whatever. Let's see. We've got episode 18. We just talked about sports. Episode 18 was why music lessons are losing to sports.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
That's a great resource for those comparisons, when you are talking with parents. And then, of course, I mentioned the guide on our resource page, how to redefine practice in music lessons. So, as a parent, and I know you're a different kind of parent because you do have that background in music, but if I were to explain those 3 things, right? So, number 1, I asked the questions like, what are your goals? What are the goals for the student? Explain those pitfalls of the transactional type of practice, and then offered the comparisons. Do you think you would feel content then to at least be open to the idea of not putting that number of minutes per week as so central?
Yes. I think trying to put myself in that position, it would help me understand, okay, that this is a long game, that this isn't something we need to quantify every day. The kind of person that I am, I want a little more. Like, okay, what can I do though? And I, I have 2 daughters, both very different. My second one is a little more driven and will have more goals.
Yeah.
Right. So I would approach each of my children differently in how I do this too. I mean, I do. My oldest is playing clarinet and she plays every day at school. Her dad is a middle school band director who requires his students to turn in practice logs every week. My daughter does not practice at home. Okay. All right. But she absolutely loves her instrument. And, if she keeps going with it, and she has a lot of other interests too, she's a singer, but there comes a point where we'll want to push her more, but we are allowing her to enjoy this right now. Okay. And then number 2, my other daughter, we push her a little bit more because she'll play something for us. And she is self-motivated. She will just pick up her guitar. Yeah. And then she'll play something for us and we'll say, well, that was only part of the song.
Right.
When are we going to hear the whole thing?
Yeah.
We want to hear the whole thing. We don't require anything of her, but we'll just say, I can't wait to hear the whole song,
That's great.
and keep her going that way. So that kind of answered your question. I would want to know, like, to just encourage have a studio owner, a teacher tell me to just encourage my child in those ways, to be what I would say as a teacher is to be involved in the music experience too. Like, ask your child what they're listening to.
Yeah.
You know, my kids introduce me to music, you know, and we'll listen to it together. I introduce my kids to music.
Yeah.
This, you know, go back into some of these episodes we've covered. This is part of that practice. This is another way of practicing, you know, and just exposing your kids to music.
Right.
So that can be part of it, or going to a concert together, or watching. There's so many great concerts you can stream, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would encourage parents, like, be a part of like unlocking this curiosity and this joy and excitement for music.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it'll take off from there.
You mentioned something about one of your daughters. You say, "That sounds great. I can't wait to hear the whole song."
Yeah.
I want to focus just a little bit on that before we wrap up, because in guitar lessons, it's really, I've seen it tons of times, and it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, but it's very common where an instructor will teach the parts of the song. Here is your verse. Here's how you play it. The student will learn how to play it. Here's your chorus. Here's how you play it. If there's a bridge, here's the bridge. Here's how you play it. All right, there you go. Right. But if there's not a plan to play the entire song together, talk about that song structure from start to finish.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, that's one of my pet peeves. It's not done. And in my experience as an instructor, I don't care how well they're playing those parts when they're playing the whole song, but I love to see them go from beginning to the end.
Yeah.
Mistakes all over the place, whatever. I don't care. Try and get from beginning to end. And it's interesting because I think my experience in piano lessons as a kid was almost the opposite, where number one, there was sheet music. So there was a definite beginning and a definite end, and we have to make it through this entire piece. But there's a lot of hyper focus on individual mistakes throughout that practice and that process of playing the song. So, try this section again. You really should work on this section a little bit more, as opposed to like, let's just try and get through this. And the process of getting through it is going to make you a better player. And then we'll go on to the next one, and you'll encounter similar techniques, and that long game is going to get you to it. So I don't know, maybe it's just a difference in philosophy, but
no, yeah. And I mean, in the example I gave, she did finish the whole song. She was learning the whole piece. Kids are really reward driven.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, I don't know if you want to keep some Jolly Ranchers and say, you know, play this for me next week. That might work for you.
Sure.
But completing that whole song was her reward. Like, that feels really good.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's what we have to translate to the parents, though, when we talk to them, so that they don't just assume, like, because parents, when they're not sitting with their kids when their kids are practicing.
Right.
They're not checking in to see, like, what their technique is. They're not checking in to see if they're doing it the right way. They're just thinking like, oh, they're picking up the instrument or they're doing it, right? So
quality over quantity.
Yeah. So there you go. That's how I think people can talk to parents about practice. But overall, just let's not perpetuate that assumption that the logging the hours is the answer, because I think that's ultimately a dead end.
Totally. I agree.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Mandy, thank you. We'll wrap up this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, John.
If you have topic suggestions or questions, please contact us at info@rockschoolproprietor.com. We'd love to hear from you and consider suggestions for the show. We've put together some free resources for teachers and studio owners over at rockschoolproprietor.com, and we've got a private Facebook group, Performance-Based Music Programs and Rock Schools. Please join us over there. On social, I'm at rock.school.proprietor on Instagram, and John Kozicki on both LinkedIn and Blue Sky. Your ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts Podcasts and Spotify are always appreciated. If you enjoyed the show and gained insight from our conversation, then we count that as a win. All we ask in return is that you pay it forward, and please share the show with someone you think needs to hear it.